Putin has decided to live forever. Secret laboratories in Russia are searching for that very elixir of immortality. Moreover, leading scientists, technologists, and even, in some cases, shamans are involved in the research. And we regularly read about all this and know it. Hello, my name is Anastasiia Husarieva, and while you're liking this video and subscribing to our channel, which I really hope you do, I'll tell you. So how is it that Putin plans to live forever? What is he doing to achieve this? And finally, is it even possible at all? So while you're doing all the things that support this video, I'll go ahead and tell you everything step by step. The Russian dictator and tyrant Putin is 73 years old and he has been in power, just imagine, for more than a quarter of a century, starting from 1999 when he first became at that time the Prime Minister of Russia and then successfully took over power from Yeltsin. And since 2000, he has been the President of Russia. For comparison, let's take, for example, Joseph Stalin, with whom Putin, as you know, is very often compared. So Stalin was in power for 31 years, while Lenin led the country for only 7 years. From the very beginning of Putin's term, there have been legends about his doubles. But maybe these aren't just legends after all? Take a look, for example, at these photographs. Journalists compared different Putins and paid attention to features that distinguish these photos, whether it's the chin or, for example, the ears, the position of the earlobes, the nose, and so on. You can also find photos like these on the internet. Here you can see how much Putin's doubles resemble the real Putin. So sometimes he doesn't appear in public for months and then suddenly comes out to meet people, which gives rise to myths about Putin as a leader who seems to have slowed down time for himself, where political and physical life intertwine for him. But what if these are not just legends and myths? According to information from open sources, financiers and scientists close to the Kremlin are already discussing the creation of technologies for Putin that could bring him closer to actual immortality, or at least allow him to live to 150 years. In Russia, the topic of longevity has long since ceased to be just a scientific fantasy. It has become a real state strategy. One of Putin's closest financiers, Herman Gref, who is also the head of Sberbank, recently promised him something that sounds like a fairy tale to most people: actual immortality, or at least living to 150 years old. According to Gref, in just 6 or 7 years, people will be able to approach actual immortality. In response, Putin noted that there was a time when people lived 20, 30, or 35 years, and that was considered normal. Now, in some countries, the average life expectancy exceeds 80 years. For women, it's a bit higher, for men, a bit lower. And he directly noted, it is probably possible to reach 150 years. Here, listen to a fragment of this conversation yourself.
With the prediction published by Mr. Kurzweil, one of those well-known technological futurists, who says that everyone who lives through the next 6 or 7 years will have a chance not just to live to 100 and beyond, but to achieve immortality. His latest prediction is that this will happen around the turn between 2030 and 2035, approximately in 2032.
Herman Oskarovich just mentioned that some experts, well, right now we're talking about Chinese experts, say that it's possible to create conditions. I won't go into details now, but in general, to create conditions under which a person could live up to 150 years.
Up to 150 years. And this isn't just a number, remember it, because we'll be coming back to it later. Behind this ambitious and seemingly fantastic idea stands not only President Putin, but an entire network of influential people and, moreover, scientists and laboratories. The key role in this is played by the Kovalchuk brothers, Mikhail Kovalchuk, whom you see on your screen now, and his brother Yuri Kovalchuk. They are also known as Putin's wallets. Both a physicist and an oligarch, they have long been considered among the closest friends of the Russian dictator. It is they, according to rumors within Putin's inner circle, who finance and control the main laboratories where advanced research is conducted in the fields of biotechnology, regenerative medicine, and body rejuvenation. But what is even more intriguing is that Putin's eldest daughter is responsible for the scientific part of the project. By the way, it should be noted here that we still don't know for sure if she is actually his daughter, because at times he does not acknowledge her, but in any case, Putin's eldest daughter is Maria Vorontsova. She is known as an endocrinologist and geneticist, and she heads programs focused on cellular renewal and rejuvenation of the body. Her laboratory received a grant of 30 million rubles to establish a so-called world-class laboratory. Here, scientists are working to ensure that the body's cells remain young, organs are renewed, and human life is extended as much as possible. Well, and of course, we all absolutely clearly understand whose life Maria Vorontsova is working to prolong. One of the main directions of this work is a large-scale initiative called 100,000 plus me, which is funded by Rosneft. The company is headed by Putin's longtime associate and friend Igor Sekin, who, according to many people familiar with the situation in the Kremlin, literally used to carry suitcases for the future dictator back in the 90s, and today runs one of Russia's largest corporations. The scale of this project, of course, is truly impressive. Scientists plan to fully sequence the genomes of 100,000 Russians, and all the data will be stored on servers in Russia. The study will include people from different regions, age groups, and social backgrounds. The goal of the study is to identify typical genetic traits and defects characteristic of the Russian nation, and in the long term, to create tools for improving the health of the most valuable Russians. This is not just theoretical talk or fanciful ideas. These are concrete laboratory studies funded by the state and closely tied to the Kremlin's political ambitions. Imagine specialized laboratories printing organ parts, conducting genetic experiments, and testing regenerative technologies. And all of this has one goal: to make Putin live as long as possible. This story no longer sounds like a sci-fi blockbuster or something similar. For Putin and his team, this is reality. They are seriously working to make a future that most of us only see in movies become a part of their lives literally today. And it should be noted here that the Russian dictator is not the first to reinvent this wheel and become obsessed with the idea of immortality. The history of Russian power shows that the obsession with longevity and a long life is an old tradition. And among those who tried to cheat death was Joseph Stalin, the very Kremlin leader who built the gulags, kept the country in fear, and at the same time desperately searched for an elixir of longevity. Stalin personally took care of the Ukrainian academician Alexander Bohomolets, the creator of the legendary anti-aging serum. At the time, it was called almost an elixir of youth. According to historians, Stalin closely followed the experiments with blood transfusions and toxic proteins, hoping to prolong his life and remain at the pinnacle of power longer than anyone else. Bohomolets Institute became the world's first state laboratory officially dedicated to rejuvenating the human body. Stalin was waiting for a breakthrough, and when the academician died, he was left on the brink of death himself, disappointed, but even more obsessed with the idea of his own longevity. At the same time, after Stalin, other Soviet leaders continued this tradition. For example, Leonid Brezhnev underwent experimental hormone therapies and even received implants to stimulate blood circulation. And his successor, whom you now see on your screens, Konstantin Chernenko, who due to illness held office for only a year, underwent intensive medical procedures to support his body and slightly postpone the end of his life. And now Putin, who has been in power for more than a quarter of a century, more precisely for over 26 years, has access to global science and billions of dollars worth of modern technologies that none of his Soviet predecessors ever had. And the goal remains the same: to outlive everyone else and to stay in power longer than anyone else. And here you could say that while Stalin dreamed of living to 120, Putin now aspires to live to 150. From Soviet serums and blood experiments to modern laboratories, genetic research, and organ printing, the path remains the same: from the fear of death to the pursuit of absolute control. But the paradox is that it's not only Russian or Soviet dictators who think about eternal life and search for that same elixir of youth. This topic has literally become global now. During Putin's official visit to Beijing, where he met with the leader of China, he discussed with Xi Jinping the possibilities of biotechnology for extending life. They talked about organ transplants, cell rejuvenation, and other scientific methods that in the future could allow people to live longer than ever before. Xi directly stated that according to forecasts, by the end of this century, people will be able to live up to 150 years. For an ordinary person, this of course sounds like science fiction, but for these two leaders, it's a serious longevity strategy. They view life extension not as a medical possibility, but as a political resource. The longer you live, the longer you can stay in power and keep everything under control. And here it's important to understand that behind these discussions, there isn't just some utopian fantasy, nor is it only a scientific interest, by the way. In Beijing and Moscow, there are laboratories, institutes, and scientific programs that even receive state funding to research rejuvenation and life extension. Putin and Xi discuss these technologies as a strategic tool to strengthen their power, to control everything, to even have control over scientific breakthroughs, and perhaps to truly make their lives endless. And in the US as well, the question of immortality has become a political symbol. Donald Trump, whom we all know very well, posted a video on his platform Truth Social, which unfortunately is not available in Ukraine, about what it would mean to be president forever. In this video, he showed the cover of Time magazine, with which Donald Fredovich Trump has had a tense relationship lately because he doesn't like the covers of Time. So in this video, he showed the cover of Time magazine, where the years in which Trump could be elected president dynamically increase all the way up to 90,000. And of course, this video was generated by artificial intelligence and was perceived, well, as a joke. But here it's also important to understand that this reflects a desire for power to be eternal. Of course, the Constitution of the United States of America does not allow such actions, because you can't become president more than twice, that is, for 2 terms. But Trump has repeatedly demonstrated that his political persona goes far beyond formal rules. And through social media and certain provocative videos that he creates with the help of artificial intelligence, he is precisely trying to achieve that effect of eternal presence. And this behavior adds an interesting international dimension. It turns out that the theme of immortality and prolonged rule is becoming common among 3 world leaders: Putin, Xi Jinping, and Trump. And while for Putin and Xi Jinping, this is mostly about biotechnology, laboratories, and research, for Trump, it's more about social networks, media, and tools that create the illusion of endless power. So, when we talk about the triad of immortality, it's not just about a long physical life, but also about prolonged political presence, where science, technology, and media become part of one big game for control and influence in the world. Now, let's take a look at the biological component of these fantasies or desires. All this talk about living to 150 years and immortality sounds astonishing. But if we turn to science, what do they say there? There, the answer is clear and simple. Aging is not just about wrinkles, gray hair, or chronic diseases. It is a complex process that affects every cell in our body, all organs, and the brain as well. Even if some revolutionary technologies appear tomorrow that allow our organs not to age, brain aging still remains insurmountable. The brain controls our thinking, our memory, and our reactions. And until we can rejuvenate it, a long life or even an endless life remains an unattainable goal. Scientists emphasize the realistic human lifespan limit is 120 to 125 years. But even this is still science fiction for now, because in order to achieve this goal, a number of factors must be taken into account. From a healthy lifestyle, dietary control, constant medical supervision, pharmacology, and of course, in the future, high-tech genetic and regenerative interventions. There is another important aspect: ethics and safety. Imagine a world where powerful rejuvenation and life extension technologies fall into the hands of the political elite. Who will control the use of these technologies? Could this become a tool for exerting pressure on society? That is why even in leading laboratories working on the development of such issues, scientists are actively debating moral, social, and political limitations. Moreover, scientists warn that even if organs are replaced, cells are rejuvenated, and the heart and lungs remain young, cognitive functions, memory, and the human psyche age differently. In other words, a person may physically appear young, but their mental processes will still undergo aging. So while Putin, Xi, and Trump discuss immortality and eternal power, science and reality tell us life can be extended, but not to 150 years. And for now, this is just a dream, not a fact. And this is a reminder that even in a world of advanced technologies, there are limits that cannot be overcome by political ambitions or financial resources. And Putin can invest as much of his oil dollar money as he wants into biotechnology, into his daughter's foundations. He can sacrifice as many Russians as he wants in his war of aggression, but for now, there is still one thing beyond his control, and he will never be able to conquer natural processes, nature, and biology. This is something we should also remember, friends, and cherish every moment of our lives, because right now, each one is unique and unrepeatable. So subscribe to our channel. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and in the end, I promise you that we will definitely meet again on air and discuss the wonderful news that Putin no longer exists. So take care of yourselves, wash your hands with soap, and see you in the next broadcasts.